Here in episode 5, Inside Whissel Realty on Real Estate Team OS, we're talking agent training and agent success. And we're doing it with someone who joined Whissel Realty Group as a real estate agent, among other opportunities in the market. So we'll find out how she made that decision, how she got involved in the mentorship program, and eventually became agent success manager, as well as the scope and mission of that role. Katy Carlson breaks down for you the first 90 days of every agent's experience as they come into Whissel Realty Group, including the full-time 2-week onboarding program, an ongoing mentorship program, and the 3 paths for an agent at the end of those 90 days. You're greenlit, off and running, sorry you're not going to make it here, or you're on probation and you need some additional guidance and coaching and training to see if you're going to make it in this highly productive team. She breaks down a variety of other topics, including how to balance skills training with mindset training and the 3 tools that they train agents on and the way that they do that in order to make sure there's maximum impact, maximum understanding, and maximum long-term value in that training. Here's a conversation on agent training with Agent Success Manager Katy Carlson as we go inside Whissel Realty, only on Real Estate Team OS.
No matter where your business is today or where you want to take it, you'll get there faster and more profitably with an operating system. Welcome to Team OS, your guide to starting, growing, and optimizing a real estate team. Here's your host, Ethan Butte.
Katy, thank you so much for making time for this. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
The goal of the Inside the Team series is to bring insights from inside high-performing organizations that I can't get alone from team leaders and COOs and directors of ops. And I really love the role that you're in, and I look forward to learning more about it. So we'll get into that in just a minute, but I'm going to start where we always do, which is what is a must-have characteristic of a high-performing team?
Yeah, honestly, I think it's synchronicity. Right? We all have to be swimming the same direction at the same time. And there's going to be agents of different skill level, and everybody has their strengths. Everybody has their weaknesses, but we all have to have our eye on the same ball and make sure that we're working towards the same goals, rolling out things at the same pace, making sure that everybody's on board and really understands the vision.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge, I can't believe I made it a superlative like that, but a very large challenge in what you described is especially across an agent population as large as Whissel Realty Group has, is not just different experience levels, but different learning styles and different approaches and different motivations and all of these things. Talk about trying to support that from your own position across such a diversity of personality types and learning styles and all of that.
Can I give you an example?
Yes, please.
Okay, so previous to being in real estate, my whole world was yoga. So that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 10 years. And I still teach. I still have classes every once in a while. And when I'm teaching a class, right, me as the instructor, I'm guiding a sequence. Everybody should be following that sequence. However, we always say, go at your own pace, right? If you need to modify. Not everybody in that room is going to be at the same skill level. However, when everybody's moving at the same pace with the same breath in and the same breath out, there's a strength in it. There's a power. If everybody went in that room and they were just doing their own sequence, it would feel like chaos. So it's totally okay to have somebody at a different pace, and we can slow down for those people when we need to, and we can give people room to advance when they're ready. And let's all just make sure that we're playing the same role here. Let's make sure that we're sequential in our movements.
Yeah. That's such a great example. I love that you went there, and because I can envision it very specifically. I've been there. I've been the person looking at the person on my right going like, I can't do it that well, but that's okay. The goal is that we're all doing it together in sequence, in pace, and that it's designed for a particular outcome.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Describe for me the agent success manager role. What is it? How did it come to be? And what's success look like?
Yeah. The interesting thing about this role is when I stepped into it, it didn't exist. And so I was one of those people, because of my background, I didn't just teach yoga. I was very involved in teacher training programs, facilitating and creating. And so when I came through, I was like what you're doing. And and so it's just been me kind of raising my hand and saying, like, the second I walked in, I was like, I have some ideas for mentorship program. They're like, do you want to get through mentorship program first? And so we had a trainer, and that was her sole goal, was to take people through our 2-week training program. And when she stepped out, we decided to create a role that was encompassing more for our new agents. So really, it's making sure that the training program and the mentorship program work in cohesion with one another, and that our agents don't just go through a training program. Again, it's 2 weeks, it's a lot of information. They get out and then they flail, no matter how excited they are. So let's make sure that there's a buffer zone. So built into our mentorship program, they have mentors, they have continued education. So there's a lot of support for new agents, whether they're vets or just newly licensed. There's an incredible amount of support for them until they get their footing.
So you joined the team as an agent. So I'd love for you to tell that story. Why did you join this team, and how did you land in a head of agent development and now agent success manager role? Just tell that story however you would like.
Yes. Okay. So when the studio I was managing, the yoga studio I was managing, shut down during COVID, a lot of time for reflection, and I decided that I wanted to continue to help people. I was very passionate about what I did, and I wanted to be in a situation in which I could make more money than what I was. And so I was doing some business development for somebody who was a real estate agent who had started a cleaning business. And he's like, you need to be doing real estate. And so I said, okay. And I looked around. My favorite thing about this team was that there was a sense of community here. And because I felt like I was kind of hitting restart on my own life, I wanted to be surrounded by people that I could enjoy being around every day, that could potentially be new friends. And I really wanted support. I didn't know what I was doing as a real estate agent, as most agents feel that way when they're coming out of their school and getting newly licensed. So that's the main reason I chose it. When I was in my interview with Whissel, I was told, we all really like each other. And I thought, sure you do. But I came to a Tuesday meeting and I really actually felt that. And so I decided to join, and I worked as an agent for about a year and a half and before I switched over to the admin team. But in the between becoming an agent and becoming the head of agent development, I stepped into the mentorship role. So I did that pretty quickly, and then I became the head of mentorship. And so that's kind of how the succession went. Yeah.
Cool. How many teams or brokerages did you look at when you thought about coming into the industry? And kind of how did you approach that interview process? I'd love for you to share essentially for an agent kind of how should you be looking at this and thinking about it, and then or could be looking at it. And then from the team side, how do we communicate what's special and unique that you came to discover? You heard something and you're like, okay, I'm skeptical naturally, but then you saw it validated in real life. So just give some tips on the agent side and on the team side based on your own experience.
Yeah, I think it really is about being in a place where you feel comfortable. So a lot of agents we find go to other teams before they come here. This was my first. I interviewed probably seriously with about 4 teams. So you really have to go with your gut. I think a lot of people have their eye on what's my commission split and, what's it going to do for me? And, it can come from a very self-serving place. And I think also too, on the admin side, we're like, okay, I liked this person or I didn't like this person or whatever it is, but you really have to learn to trust your instincts when it comes to, you'll hear me talk about this, I'm sure, sure my trainees love it, but I'm always speaking to energy, right? If you're around a group of people and it feels good, then lean into that, because that's where you're going to get your support. That's where you're going to find comfortability. If something, even if it has like a flashy split, but you're not comfortable having like real conversations with the person you're interviewing with, like, listen to that. That's the type of relationship you're going to have moving forward. So just make sure you feel good, in conversation, in a room, in a space with somebody else.
Cool. I also appreciate, the commission split doesn't matter if you're not going to be productive anyway.
Exactly.
95% of nothing is still nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which I think is really hard to communicate, because this also falls into that category of things that people can be naturally skeptical about. Like you can show someone on paper, like, well, here's the deal. We're going to help you do 40% more transactions than you averaged over your first 18 months. Here's how we're going to do it. Here are 4 examples from 4 agents that we helped do this recently. And here's what that's going to net out to you in the end and how you're going to be financially ahead. But there's still a skepticism around it.
Mm-hmm. I love this. We have a financials class during the training period, and there's always new agents in the room or semi-new agents that when they see the splits, especially the first couple, because you're also paying out your mentorship fees, and you haven't leveled up yet, and so it can be a little daunting to see, especially if it's a team lead or a Zillow lead, and it can be a little scary to see those numbers. But there's always somebody in that room that's like doing my job for me, because they're like, I've been on other teams, I've had higher splits, you don't get this support, you don't get the training, you don't get the systems. And I'm like, what they said.
Yeah, totally.
So.
Yeah, and that is the other side of the equation too, is like you're not just paying essentially the split for nothing. You're paying to have all of these things. Like it's easy to look at the cost without understanding the benefit, especially from the outside coming in. So you mentioned a financials class. I love that. What are some of the core blocks of training that you get the most positive feedback on?
So we kind of split it up into a couple different things. So I want them to have a full understanding of all of our systems, and there are a lot. And how those integrate together. I want them to learn sales skills. I want them to learn the importance of prospecting and how to go after it. But honestly, there's a class that I've been teaching since well before I stepped into this role. I was asked to take this on pretty early on, and it's goal setting. And we do goal setting. We do numeric goals, so know what you want to make. And we also do a really deep dive into the why when we talk about energetics, and we talk about emotional stability, and we talk about the importance of having a why that's like so strong and like tied to the heart center, to help you stay motivated as you're trying to get your business off the ground. So that's been a really fun one. I always get really great feedback from that.
Cool. I would love for you to speak into energetics a little bit more. It's something that you've now mentioned twice. I feel like there is essentially what we're trying to do is create things that didn't exist before, new relationships, new opportunities for and with our clients, et cetera. And I think energy, generally speaking, is a key part of that. But I'd love to hear it in your language. How do you teach this? Especially, I'm thinking about like maybe a high D personality, hard driving, like I don't have time for this. This starts to sound a little bit, and I don't mean this disrespectfully at all, but like it sounds a little bit woo-woo or something for some personality types. I would love for you to make it more approachable. How do you? I know you're doing it. How are you making it approachable and understandable for that type of personality?
Great question. And for me, I find that when I got on board with it, because even after I started teaching yoga, I wasn't like fully bought into some of it felt very woo-woo to me. But once I started studying energy from a scientific standpoint, that's when I was like, okay, now it all clicks and I really understand. And so when I'm speaking to people, there's 3 different ways that we can talk about energy. I can ask you how you're feeling right now. What's your energetic state right now? Really what I'm asking you is how are you feeling emotionally? Because your emotions are vibrations, right? And so I could probably tell if you were in a bad mood without you saying anything, right?
Yeah.
So there's how are you feeling right now? And the importance of this in a real estate setting is that you have to make sure that you're checking in with like current energy, like how am I feeling right now? Before you're going in to meet with a client. If you're letting the weight of your day weigh on you or you're feeling nervous, regardless of how you deliver the words, your client's feeling that. So we want to just make sure that we're always in tune with like, hey, I'm in a not great place right now. How can I do a quick little switch, right? So hopefully that feels pretty palatable. Right. And then there's you hear people talk about manifestation. So then you have your future energy. Right. But basically all we're talking about here is goals and taking it a little bit further and really emulating like the version of yourself that exists having already achieved those goals. Okay. So if let's say your goal is to make $100,000 this year. What is the you that's made $100,000? What is that person standing like? What is their posture like? What is their smile like? What is their life like? Let's just picture that. And can we start emulating some of those characteristics now?
This is a category a lot of people just put into mindset.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a million different ways to look at this or lenses to view it from. But yeah.
How do you balance skills versus mindset? I mean, at some level, the skills aren't nearly as useful if they're not motivated the right way and wrapped or approached from the right mindset. Likewise, you can have the best mindset in the world, but if you don't have any of the skills, you're just out there trying to make something happen, but not being equipped to do so. How do you balance those two? When you're thinking about the curriculum overall, what is an agent who spent 7 months with us been delivered from a training perspective? How do you balance those two things? Are they both part of most conversations, or do you go deep into one and then go deep into another, some of all of that?
Yeah. Honestly, those two topics are in constant circulation, right? I am telling them every single day in every single class in one way or another how bad you have to want this, because this is not an easy industry to be in, right? You don't know when your next paycheck is coming. There is no salary. And so if you aren't willing to show up and do the work, if you're not willing to focus on, and we talk about some mindset stuff, breaking some thought patterns and things like that, it could be really easy to say, hey, I'm going to throw on Netflix during lunch today. Or I'm going to listen to a sales podcast or maybe one of my past calls during lunch today, and I'm going to get on the phones right after. So we're constantly having these conversations throughout. And then I'm going to give you the skills. I kind of break the skills up into different classes. So this is an open house class and how you tackle that and some things you can say. And here's your cold call class. And here are some things you can say. But the motivation piece has to be interwoven.
So give us a look at how much interaction an agent is going to get from you and your team, and this from onboarding to consistent training, and say the first 3 or 6 months. What does the first couple weeks or 30 days look like? Mentorship program picks up on the back end of that, but then what does the sustained give us just a general scope of how much training is someone going to get in their first 3-6 months?
The first 2 weeks, full 2 weeks. 9 to 3:30, Monday through Friday, fire hose of information. And then they have to test out on that last Friday.
And this is all the key basics of how to operate in this market and in this team.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. So everything at once. Then from there, and they have to test out on certain things too. They have to check off on their schedule for the next 2 weeks. Because one of the main things that I saw is that people were coming through training, right, and just really flailing right after. So let's set up your schedule and make sure you know what you're doing when you're prospecting. On that last day of training, they also get assigned a mentor. Mentors do one-on-one meetings with their mentee once a week for the first 3 months. They also have continued education classes with me or one of our top agents twice a month. So continued education, making sure that they have a place to bring their questions as well. So if they're struggling with a client or a platform, it's a really great place for them to do that. Then at the end of 3 months, they have their 3-month review, at which time we can say, hey, you're doing great, keep rolling, okay? And we can take the training wheels off. Or we say, this is not a good fit, good luck. Or we say, you're right there, let's just light a little fire. You're on probation for a month. Here are a couple of metrics that you need to hit in order to stay on the team. So the hope is that most people are coming out greenlit. What we're working on building out right now, so it's not in play quite yet, but our next phase is to create some group training or group consultation type classes for them at that 6 mark, 9 mark, and 12 mark benchmark, with a little bit more structure in how to teach the agents to self-evaluate and make sure that they're staying on track, how to pull their own numbers, those types of things.
Cool. And in that first 2 weeks, how much of it is like systems and processes? This is how we do it around here. These are the things that we use. Here's how to get into this system, versus this is who we are. This is what we're about. This is how we carry ourselves in the market. This is what's unique about us. These are some sales skills you're going to need. Here's the mindset you're going to need. Like, how do you balance those elements?
So one of the major changes that I wanted to make in the training program when I came in was giving the information to the agents in a way that felt really linear and useful, so that hopefully they could retain it, because we have a massive amount of platforms that we use. And so it's like, here's all the platforms and how to use them all. And by the time you do a little bit of sales skills and some goal setting, and then you're testing out on some of our USPs, they've forgotten how to use those. So we log into everything on day 1. Don't worry about what it is. I'll tell you verbally what it is, but what we need to do is make sure that we're setting up the agent experience in sequence, right? So first, week 1 is really buyer heavy. Week 2, a little bit more seller heavy. And it's okay. So this is the platform that you use when you get your clients. This is how you use it and set up their searches. Okay, now we need to do, we have a lot of forms and things that need to be filled out on the back end. So as you meet with your clients, now we'll talk about how to use this system to fill out your forms. So that's kind of the progression. Okay, now we're doing CMAs. Okay, now we're going to use, so we're trying to kind of interweave it, because honestly, my mindset anyway, the platforms are kind of boring, right? It's learning how to use them in a way that feels like, oh, this is what my life is going to look like. So integration.
Yeah, they're tools for jobs. And so you're teaching the job and then saying, this is the tool that we use for this thing. That's really smart. I like that. What are the key agent-facing tools that your team is using?
So our biggest tool is our CRM, Follow Up Boss. We use Ylopo for our searches. We use High Note. Are you familiar with High Note?
It's like a presentation platform.
Basically, yeah, exactly. So you can present offers or information to your clients. So we utilize that.
And the power is that you can see, if you share it digitally, the agent can see, or anyone could on your side could see, how much attention did they pay to these things? How much time did they spend in it? What did they look at? What did they not look at?
Yeah, I really nerd out on High Note. I think it's because you have to, in this climate, if you will, you have to set yourself apart as an agent, because there's a lot of agents doing bare minimum. But what if we meet at an open house and have a really great conversation, and we're talking about ADUs, and the following day, not only did I call you and send you a video text, but I sent you a High Note and I say, hey, here's some of that information we talked about, and I also gave you a contact to my ADU guy. Let him know that I sent you. And so it's just like, it's so powerful. It helps you stand out. And as you mentioned, you can see if they opened it. Do they give a shit or not, right? And you can disc profile them from, are they spending a lot of time on your intro video that's in there? Or are they just opening for 3 seconds and closing? Those are your high Ds. Are they pouring over the contract type things? Those are your high Ds, high Cs, right? So I think that's a great tool.
That's cool. How has the buyer side training changed in the past 3 months or so?
The buyer side training program, yes, NAR, fun stuff. Honestly, it's pretty cool because we had a training group pre and a training group post rollout and how we're approaching all of this. So really, I just shifted some times a little bit and added in a class and made it feel like it was always there. Right. So the conversation's very similar. We already have a VIP buyer program in which we're asking for a signature. Now there's just an extra form. So, of course, we talk about some of the legalities and changes that have been made, but my goal has to make it feel as normal as possible.
Cool. It sounds like you have a nice mix of cohort training, especially coming out of, or that 2-week period is a cohort, right? You're running 5 to 12 people through it at a time-ish?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then ongoing all agent training on some regular cadence?
Yeah, so I also oversee a couple of educational programs, if you will. So we have our in-person role play, which speaks for itself. I also do a class.
How often is that? Sorry.
Once a week.
Okay.
Once a week in person. We host at all 4 studios. That's my yogi offices.
And is that
Yeah.
mandatory for, say, all bronze and silver, or is how is that if you feel like you need or want it, you should show up? How does that go?
Expectation based.
Yep.
Our bronze need to be at 3 a month, silver 2, and gold and platinum 1.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then I also do a Tune-Up Thursday. This is a completely optional class, but every Thursday I roll out some sort of refresh, or maybe I'll even do agent interviews. Some of our leaderboard agents come on and just share their successes. So there's always, this week, for instance, the whole class will be on how to perform a self-evaluation to see what you need to work on in your business. So that's ongoing as well.
Cool. Outside of mentorship, what type of one-on-one, how long is the mentorship program? If you are an agent who makes it through the 3-month window, is that the close of the mentorship window?
It is not.
Okay.
It is, they are with their mentors for their first 3 transactions. So I will take my hands off if they make it, without probation. If they're in probation, I stay with them basically, but then they kind of just shift into doing their own thing. They're still with their mentor for the first 3 transactions, unless they have a certain amount of transactions in the previous calendar year, then we could agree on 2 or maybe 1.
Mm-hmm. Cool. You probably mentioned this or came close to it, which is, do you have your own goals for how many people are greenlit out of it? Probation and sorry, this just isn't going to work for the both of us. Do you have your own goals for that, and are you working to keep shifting up toward more people getting out, or is it just kind of it's just a natural process and this is just part of our process and what happens is okay?
I do not have any numeric goals around that. It really is different class to class. Sometimes, people will interview really well and come into training and we find out right away it's not a good fit for whatever reason, core values or lack of, ambition or whatever it is. And we'll just cut it right away. And I actually don't mind that. I think that it's really important because I'm so aware of the team and how we all show up for one another. I'm also very protective of it. So if anything, if we need to make a change, we'll make that early on. And so if that needs to, I would love to say, my goal is to get everybody through training, but that's not always the case. I don't always feel that way. My goal is to not have to put anybody on probation. But there are some people, and it's not necessarily a bad thing to be on probation either, because some people just have a little bit of a slower start, and that probation hopefully lights a fire and gives a little bit of a landing pad for them to try and create a little bit of shift. So However, I will say this, having been an agent and knowing the struggle and not really being prepared for the amount of work and consistency that has to go into having a consistent paycheck, I want agents transacting fast and frequently. They're like my babies, right? Like, I'm like, I want you to make money. Let's do it, you know? So, I'm trying to give them as much support as I can to make sure that they're transacting soon. So my goals are probably a little bit more based on like, can we get people up and running into their first transaction in the first 3 months? That's my goal.
Thoughts on virtual versus in person? I would assume that a lot of your training has been captured on video so that it can be in a learning management system. In person has distinct benefits. So you probably try to do a lot of it that way, but this isn't a small market, so it's not necessarily easy to get everyone in the same place. How do you think about an approach in person versus virtual?
I think in person is so important. Again, to kind of circle back to the energy of the team, right? These people become close with one another, which they can't do when they're watching videos in their own home. And they create this really incredible bond with one another. We get to laugh together. We get to spitball and just questions as they come, we tackle. And it's just a really powerful experience. And to be honest, we don't have much training that is required for them to do at home. Eventually, we'll start to shift to a hybrid, depending on how we expand. But for right now, we love the entirety of the 2 weeks to be in person.
Yeah, I like that too, in part because in person is the most powerful part of an agent-client relationship.
Right?
There's a reason that all of
So
the lead
true.
follow-up and nurturing process is to get together face-to-face as often as possible and as early as possible. And so there's no reason not to replicate that on the bonding side. And it does come back to what you said, which is like this energy and what comes of it, including, confidence, trust, connection, et cetera. Like we are on the same wavelength about this thing, or we're very much off and we're not going to be good to work together from like a client agent perspective. I know that's how it goes in our house is like, after it, whether it's real estate or anything else, after that person leaves your, kitchen table or wherever you're having the conversation, there's a stakeholder discussion inside that home about who did we connect with the best, who did we like the best, who did we feel the best energy from, who do we have the most trust in, and a lot of that is intuitive, and that's developed in person best.
It is, yeah. There's, I'm sure if we did a lot of hybrid, certain people would have made it through the training program that maybe we wouldn't have wanted, or vice versa. Sometimes there's people that you just kind of have to pull it out of them a little bit, and that's okay too. But I love what you said. Like we have to practice being in front of one another and having conversations with one another. And I always say to them when they're nervous to role play or whatever, just say words. Like let's just get used to being in a space where we feel comfortable just saying things. Like just try it on.
Yeah, that's funny. My previous role, I was helping people get comfortable and confident on camera, and it's very similar. It is unique because you don't get feedback like when you're trying to communicate with someone who isn't there,
right?
As if they're there, kind of.
Yeah,
it's a different dynamic, but it's the same thing. It's really difficult to get people comfortable and confident in that role. Some people are more naturally attuned to it than others. When you look at 2025. I know there's a formal process through EOS for the team to kind of get all on the same page about what the most important things are and what we're going to start working on. But for you personally, what are you most excited about when you think about, a new year coming up as we're in the back half of the year here? What are you most excited about in terms of, your zone and scope of responsibility and influence and challenge and opportunity? What are you looking forward to maybe implementing or bringing to life or doubling back on and refining? Like, how are you thinking about the year ahead?
I am always in a state of refining the training program. Every class, and I don't teach every class. They're there now in training, but after every class, I'm taking notes and making little tweaks. So that will be like forever my baby because I really put a lot of love into that. Mentorship is ready for an upgrade, so I'm really excited to create more structure for the mentors. so that they can better serve the mentees and everybody can make some money. And I also am really excited to roll out some more coaching for people after that 3-month period, because the thought process is that, right, if we can get them to find success in their first year, they're going to be more apt to be able to do that in their year 2. So that hopefully that will help with retention and overall like happiness of the team. So
Cool. Well, I wish you success in that.
Thank
and
you.
before I let you go, I'd
Okay.
love to know, what is one of your most frivolous purchases, or
okay.
what's a cheapskate habit that you hold on to even though you probably don't need to anymore?
Okay, I'm going to go with frivolous purchase. Okay. Travel is like my heart. I love to travel. And so I took pretty much everything I had financially and bought myself a one-way ticket to Bali. And I let myself spend X amount, right, just enough to get home and restart. So X amount of money. And I was able to stretch it for 3 months in Southeast Asia. So that was kind of a frivolous spend and adventure.
How long ago was that?
Oh gosh, that one was probably about, this is not uncommon for me.
Yeah.
I think that's probably about 10 years ago now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bold choice. And I'm sure it was transformative.
Yeah, absolutely.
Were you looking for anything in particular in that commitment and investment, or were you just going to see how it went?
Yeah, I just wanted to go experience what was out there, experience life. I was 20s were traveling. I lived on islands. I backpacked and all of these things. And so I've found that just showing up somewhere and being really open, for me, I don't plan a lot when I travel. If I let the wind kind of sweep me, I always have just a really beautiful experience meeting people and finding like secret lands and things like that. So yeah, just to adventure, see what happens, meet new people, open to change.
Cool. I'm always glad I asked those closing questions. I appreciate that. Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I enjoyed it very much and I learned a lot.
Good. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Team OS. Get quick insights all the time by checking out Real Estate Team OS on Instagram and on TikTok.